Thank you so much for joining us for Tech Conference 2021. I am here with two colleagues of mine that work in the tech recruiting and community engagement and academia space. And we are engaging in a conversation about businesses, growth, what's going on in the market right now, hiring tech talent and talent in general. And we are here with these two experts to give you some ideas on ways you can grow your company, shifting in an ever-changing world involving COVID over the last year, and just some things to think of as you're growing your company, and looking at ways to engage more with the community in general, and also bringing the Black-owned businesses in that community into the hiring scheme and ways to do that. So I will let you take it away, Leah. If you don't mind giving us a little bit of background on you to give us some context, that would be great.
Yeah. Hi, thank you guys for having me today. My name is Leah Piedmantel. I am a native San Franciscan, and I'm the Assistant Director of Community Relations. I work in health and education. I've also worked in tech as well. My expertise lies in diversity inclusion as well. I have a certificate from UCSF in examining how do we engage communities in terms of communications, understanding where they are, and using complex relations as an opportunity to grow diversity and social impact. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Kevin, if you don't mind kind of going over your background for us a little bit too, that would be great.
Certainly. My name's Kevin Nichols, born and raised in the Bay Area as well. My background comes from a hybrid of technology in the legal industry. I specialize in what they call electronic discovery for about 12 years in big law firms. I also created and ran diversity programs in big law firms. The last, I guess, 8 years or so, I've been focused on creating diverse pipeline for young people to get interested in traditional STEM and eventually work in the tech industry. So I've created an organization called the Social Engineering Project, which I'm the founder of. And we have a strategic partnership with Stanford University School of Education. And we've developed programs for young people to get interested in STEM. And I help tech companies recruit and retain diverse talent as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So I'm just going to dive into it with both of you. And thank you. I know both of you are very involved in a lot of these topics that are important to, Black-owned businesses and hiring managers and venture capital and private equity, looking at how to grow their companies. And also for young people, as you just brought up, Kevin, to give them, ideas of how to get into the tech industry or into certain industries in specific. And I think it's great that everyone that's here today on this panel has experience in, early education, community programs, and in the academia space, as well as internships and fellowships linked to these universities. So that's great. So my first question for you, and I will direct this to Kevin. So what are some of the most effective ways to generate interest in tech and other competitive, highly sought after skill sets in the Black community? What would be some of your advice to not only business owners, but also to, younger folks that are in undergrad programs, are working through their education and trying to figure out how to break into the tech space and other very similar industries, like robotics or health tech and some of these things that we're seeing a lot of interest in right now?
Okay, well, what I would say is, number one, for young people and anyone interested in getting into tech, the challenge is to get tech to be absorbed from a culturally relevant lens. So it's really hard to learn a subject matter when you can't relate to it. So our programs help you relate to it from a culturally relevant perspective. Nevertheless, if you are not in our programs or not in a pipeline organization that presents this information to you, what you can do is try to, I guess, create that bridge in your mind when you're exposed to STEM. When it comes to businesses looking to recruit and retain diverse talent, really, students need to really see people that look like them that have been successful in those industries. So if they can see it and believe about it, then they can be it themselves. So literally, not just having, tapping all your Black and brown employees to be the ones to evangelize what you do, but really helping people see what the engineers or scientists that are doing in your companies really are doing, their projects they're working on, and allow them an opportunity to have an internship or something like that to give them a bird's eye view of what it would look like working there in the company.
Wonderful. And to that point, I have a follow-up question for you, Leah. Kevin touched on something that's very important. What are some of the ways or groups or avenues that companies and leaders within companies can kind of tap into to be involved in a mentorship and get these younger people involved in STEM and get them excited about these, different areas that they work in and advocate for their companies and, the areas that they work in?
Yeah. So the first thing, you can always go to the local colleges and reach out to the BSUs, also on a high school level. I think that it's very important to start when they're young, to put this in their mindset. Oftentimes they don't know about the variety of opportunities that are out there. So the first step is inspiration, to say this exists and this can be you. And these are the tools and the pathways to get there. And seeing someone that looks like them, someone that resonates, where, oh, that sounds like my story. They had these struggles or they had a similar upbringing. So this makes me believe that I could see that. So first starting in your local high schools, BSU, and then working in your college, and then looking at other companies, their affinity group. Is it the Black MBA Association? Is it a women's association? What are the different associations that exist and special interest groups that have connections within the community? So, for example, in Bayview, is it Mega Black that has a hand in so many different groups and organizations that they would know, oh, this is a great group that you should reach out to? Is it 100% college prep that you should reach out to? So there's all these different varieties, but also tapping into your network. You don't know what you don't know. You might have someone that's within your network who's like, oh, I know someone with this organization, or there's this group forming, or I might know someone directly. So always be willing to reach out to your entire network and be willing to expand as well.
Thank you so much for that. That's great advice. I know there's a lot of people that come to me that are leaders in companies that want to get involved and want to speak at high schools and things like that. So I know we will also include some resources from both of you, myself and others, of groups that they can reach out to if they want to engage more with the communities and with the schools, high schools, even junior high and university as well. So we'll definitely be giving some of those resources to everyone to have access to through this tech conference. So my next question directed to Kevin is, what are some examples of partnership groups that you feel embody diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that are leaders in kind of building a culture-rich talent pool?
I think it depends on the industry that we're talking about. However, like Leah mentioned, the National Black MBA Association, there are a lot of organizations, I would say, like National Society of Black Engineers. They focus on college students as well as high school and even elementary school, creating a pipeline. So there are a number of organizations that are affinity groups for different industries that you could tap into. But for me, I also think that, I partner with the United Negro College Fund's STEM Association. They have, and the Thurgood Marshall Fund. They all have historically Black colleges and universities that are in these consortiums where they are able to get young kids and get college students interested in STEM. They have strategic partnerships with the industry and have internships and other opportunities for companies to see the best talent that African Americans have to offer firsthand. And then that way you can leverage those relationships to recruit and then retain them.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for that. That's very helpful. I know that there are a lot of businesses that want to get more involved in these different organizations, and we want to give them access to them so that they're just aware that they're out there and able to partner, in various areas to make sure that they're actually focusing on diversity and inclusion and equity, and using all of those resources available to them. So Leah, I have a question for you. What would be your advice to business owners to engage with diverse communities? How can that engagement turn into opportunity for both the businesses and the leaders within those businesses and potential employees?
Yes, I think the most important thing is research, understanding where you're going, not just from Google, but from people. having relationships and understanding the stakeholders, visiting the area where you're trying to recruit people, where are people engaging, what are the staples of the community, what are the issues historically, the perceptions as well, to understand the people where they're coming from. And then that way you're able to come in with insight and understanding so that you can make the right type of impact. Also ensuring that you have cultural communication and awareness is very important. Understanding how communities communicate, especially with the pandemic, it's changed how we engage. So often I tell people social media is a very big tool. You need something that's shareable. What is the logo or the branding for your event? It needs to fit in a black square. So a stakeholder group can put it on their social media. That can be shared, snapshots sent to other people, but the wording has to be insightful. It has to resonate. So often people use social impact, but what does that mean? What social impact are you making into that community? Oftentimes buzzwords are nice, but what is the real meaning? And communities can see when companies know what the meaning is, you're able to tap into the real issues with real stories.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for that insight. And so, Kevin, I have a question for you to Leah's point in bringing up COVID and how that has changed the job market for not only, folks that are seeking their next career opportunity or who have unfortunately been displaced by COVID and how that's affected businesses, and also the way that it's affected how businesses look at remote talent. And I know that a lot of, startups, mid-size, and even larger companies are starting to kind of change the way that they look at that. What impact do you feel that this whole scenario over this last year, COVID, work from home, has had on the job market and the way that the remote workforce is viewed? What is some advice that you have for both the potential employees and the employers from what you've seen in the market the last year?
Well, one of the funny things about it is 2 years ago, everyone was probably offended if you wanted to work from home, like people had a personal vendetta. They think you were doing something inappropriate if you weren't willing to come into the office or if you worked from home 1 day a week. Now we're seeing that people are able to be productive, just as productive, if not more productive, working remotely. Living in the Bay Area, you're cutting down from the East Bay or some suburb commuting into like San Francisco or San Jose, Silicon Valley. You're saving an hour and a half each way on your day. So that gives you back at least 3 hours of your performance to be able to be productive.
Absolutely.
There are pros and cons to that, number one. But also, companies are struggling to say, okay, well, we had to relocate you to the Bay Area. We know that it's expensive to work here and live here. We no longer need to do that. People here in Silicon Valley that since COVID hit have moved away. I know some people that I know very well have picked up and moved to Atlanta, moved to Seattle, moved to other places where it's cheaper to live and continue to do their work that they do here and retain that same salary. So that's, it helps out for college students and for students as well, because they don't have to necessarily live here in order to get a job. So it opens everything up and it's going to level the playing field. It also may affect salaries. So we don't really know how it's going to settle yet.
Yeah, I know a lot of companies are asking these questions, so it's great for us to start the conversation and give them some ideas. I know one thing that COVID has really encouraged is for companies to look at areas where they can recruit from, where they're able to find this talent that they're looking for in the tech industry and outside of tech. Now they're able to look at more diverse communities than where their companies are based. So I know that's been kind of a silver lining to this whole difficult situation that we're all faced with right now involving COVID. So one thing that I wanted to talk to Leah about is I know that you and I, and also Kevin, have been really involved in internship programs and fellowship programs that companies have started. And one big question that I get recently is, how to go about starting an internship program or a fellowship program, how to get involved with universities. Obviously, you are heading up, community relations and outreach for UCSF. So you have some immediate experience within academia in this area. So what are some of your ideas for, building internship programs to fuel diversity and inclusion and hiring in general, to kind of build up a company culture?
For me?
Yes, Leah.
The first thing I definitely would say is you need to have people within your organization who want to be mentors. It's an opportunity that they have. If you're going to bring in interns, they need guidance and they're looking for someone who is doing what they seek to do. Lessons learned. If it's for them giving that opportunity of you may not be able to go back in time, but you can pass on your wisdom to these individuals. The second component is what do you hope to accomplish with this internship? What is the goal of this organization? When you do an audit at the end of the year and you evaluate this program, what are the goals that you hope to accomplish? What are the visions of this? Besides increasing diversity, what will diversity bring to your organization? So a key understanding of what that can bring is it communication, different insights. I remember once I saw an advertisement and I thought, oh, there was no diversity at the table when there was decision making. So understanding how different perspectives can bring into this table, helping your organization's PR, making sure that you keep loyalty, because when things are offensive or not culturally sensitive, we live in a fast-paced Twitter life, and it takes 2 seconds for someone to start tweeting about it, and then Black Twitter will pick it up, and then someone else will pick it up, and then your brand no longer exists again. And we've seen this time and time again with brands and individuals. For example, I'll take the WWE as an example. Hulk Hogan was a staple, but then his comments came out, and WWE doesn't want to affect their business, their brand. So you let go of that person that does not embody your visions of diversity inclusion. So that's the kind of example. And then also it would be, where are you going to reach them? How often are you going to have these interns? And also it's good to have some type of alumni association where these previous interns can come back and provide additional guidance, but this is your highlight. We have worked with X amount of interns. This is where they've gone. Are you going to have real job opportunities available for these interns? Because you're building that relationship. You're seeking your company as someplace they want to petitionally work. So are there going to be opportunities? Is the company looking at expanding their opportunities, having a D&I component, a social impact component? Is this an opportunity to expand the workforce within your organization? So I'd say understanding the mission, vision, and goals and opportunities. What do you want your success to be, and outlining that as well, and having people that are committed to being mentors, and having an alumni association where you can bring additional ideas, but also feedback. You don't know what you don't know, and the best way to get that information is feedback from those who've gone through the program that can help you moving forward with that feedback to bring more positive change.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. Have a plan once you bring in interns. I know something that I've seen time and time again is bringing in this amazing, capable intern that's so hungry and wants to learn, and not taking the time to set up a plan for their growth goals and their projects, and really fostering that and putting the energy into it. So thank you so much for that insight. That's amazing.
I'd like to piggyback on
Yeah,
that.
and Kevin, I was going to ask if you had some insight in this area as well, because I know you've done a lot in this particular area too.
Well, but definitely, number one, I was actually a product of it. I was in the Inroads program many years ago, and that was a program that trained you during the summer and on Saturdays throughout your first summer going into college, and then every summer till you graduate. Europe is another program that I'm familiar with as well, but essentially you want an internship program where it teaches you the soft skills as well as prepares you for the work that you're going to do. So I learned how to dress, how to proper etiquette for email, and how to interact with and develop your internal brand in the company, et cetera, and how to set high standards for yourself and create a work ethic. So those are the kinds of things that were very important and allowed me to be successful, in my career. Whereas, like as you mentioned, with companies not thinking this through of, just having someone there, I also, was one of the reasons why I changed my major from mechanical engineering to African American studies. And it was primarily because when I got there to do this work, I didn't have a support system, and I didn't have the encouragement internally to get assistance for the projects I was given. It's basically given in the beginning of the summer some books and said, we'll see you in August. That's that's not the kind of internship that's going to allow an individual to thrive. And so that's having that balance both before you bring that intern in is what's very crucial.
Well, and I think that's great advice too. I love the fact that you took your experience, being in that type of program and realized that you wanted to become that leader or that person that brings someone in early on in their career or in their early education, and make sure that you're able to give them the tools to be mentored, and that you're kind of stepping in as the leader that you didn't necessarily have in the beginning. So I think that's amazing. Another question that I have for you guys is it worth the energy and resources to focus on internship and fellowship programs to build a company with talent newer to the workforce? And do you feel that this is an important endeavor for companies to make sure that their diversity and inclusion is actually actionable within their organization? Leah, if you don't mind taking this.
I think it's important because you have to have something that backs it up. People want to see, what did you accomplish? Because you want to see results. Like, it's something that's very critical, it's something that's important, and we have an opportunity. And within that opportunity, you have great responsibility to achieve greatness. We have great individuals, minds, and opportunities. So I think that having that fact checking and having those accomplishments, it means something for the organization, but also for other individuals as well.
Yeah, definitely. And Kevin, do you have any thoughts on this particular subject?
Yeah, I think that Leah said it best.
Yeah, definitely. So Kevin, one question I have for you is, what areas do you feel are important for business leaders to focus on when it comes to employer brand and social media and marketing from a recruiting standpoint? And I know this is something that I definitely want to hear from Leah on this as well, because both of you do a lot of work in this area.
Brand is important. Cancel culture, what Leah mentioned, alluded to regarding Black Twitter, is important as well. I think that it's more so heightened now after the George Floyd incident last year. Companies are on alert that they have a problem. And to piggyback from the previous question that just came to my mind as well, is like, this emphasis on recruitment and getting diversity on the front end is great, but the diversity needs to happen in the C-suite and the senior leadership, primarily, and allowing that to trickle down. So companies are more comfortable letting, entry-level employees in and increasing their numbers that way. But that's not where we're going with this. And actually, people aren't going to settle for that any longer. So it's really time to look at your senior leadership and say, hey, as I mentioned in the beginning when we started, if I can't see someone in the organization what I want to aspire to, I'm in the wrong organization, and they need to invest in bringing lateral or talent that's on that executive level as well. It's just as important.
Absolutely agree with you. Top down and lead by example, I think, is very, very important. And I've seen a lot of companies fail in their efforts to really build a substantive equity, diversity, and inclusion program by not focusing on their leadership team to kind of drive that as well. So I could not agree with you more. So another question I have for you guys, and this is obviously a bigger topic, but Kevin, I'd love for you to tackle this one first. I know I do a lot of work in the immigration space, and there's legal aspects to that, obviously, that companies have to consider. A big part of my diversity, equity, and inclusion programs have surrounded, especially in the tech space, in data science, and even on the clinical side with informatics and epidemiology, as well as engineering, software engineers, software architecture, et cetera. In these particular areas within STEM, I feel that it's very important for companies to be open-minded about immigration and sponsoring visas and that whole process. And I know that over this past year, there's been, a lot of changes that have happened within this space, but I would love to talk to you a little bit about ways for companies to go about, starting a conversation about considering folks that may take a little bit longer to start due to, immigration issues or visa sponsorship process. Do you have any advice to companies that are wanting to focus more on that area, not only for, bringing in people that look and think differently, but also people that come from completely different cultures that don't come from here in the US, I think is really valuable. What would be some advice that you have for companies that really want to hone in on that and start considering people with those types of backgrounds more than they are now?
Well, I think that it's a complex issue. A lot of it boils down to what that company's mission and their values are. For me personally, and my thoughts about it is I'm open to, companies being able to choose who their employees are, et cetera. However, my concern or fear is that a lot of those decisions are based upon the bottom line of the company. So your CEO and your C-suite are making millions of dollars, and let's go outsource and get talent from some other country because it's going to be cheaper, and they are going to work on different time zones, so they'll be working constantly, and will be so much more productive. Whereas you have talent that's here, that's diverse, that can't find a job, and that went to school or went to a trade school or coding boot camp or program and can't get a job here and is doing something less than what they should or what they studied to do because they can't find employment. I think that we need to look out for our country and make sure that the people that went to school here, pay taxes here, and live here have access to these jobs as well. So that's the conundrum I see that exists in the companies and corporate America.
I think a lot of it's about perception too, right? When people are educated and they're not ignorant in an issue and they understand the benefits and, kind of are able to weigh those, that's really important too. So I think that, to your point, and that's a really important and very broad conversation to have within an organization. Leah, do you have any thoughts on this in this particular area?
Yeah, I traveled to Israel a couple years ago and was interesting seeing different perspectives. And one thing I remember was going to Ramallah, and someone had proposed the idea. Imagine if some of these companies had headquarters here, and they had companies that could provide opportunities here related to this area. What type of impact could you make? So as companies are thinking about expanding, internationally, what can they do within these different countries, but also have a community relations component that you're actually helping the community that's there. But I agree with what Kevin said, as well as we do need to look at our current population that's currently here that wants opportunities. If a company is looking to internationally expand, where is a place that could use the resources and assistance and community benefits from this company in this area to bring about that positive change? So it's that two components of where can you make an impact? If you're looking to grow and bring diversity, what country can you do it? But also looking at within where we are at our current population to make sure that they're at the table too. So there's various ways where you can help as many people as possible depending upon your organizational model, reach, and expansion.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I think that's a great perspective to have spent time in other countries and to see how, their workforce functions and just the different cultures and what that means to the culture of overall companies. I think that is a really valuable kind of perspective to have. So thank you for sharing that with us. And this one's for you, Kevin. What are some ways that Black-owned businesses, or just businesses in general as well, can invest in communities to bring the community into the work that they're doing, especially like mission-driven companies? What are some ideas of ways for companies to show that they want to get involved in the communities that they serve with their products or services or whatever it is that their company is about?
Number one, they can build strategic partnerships with community-based organizations. So I run a community-based organization, the Social Engineering Project, but there are Black-owned Chamber of Commerces, so the African American Chamber of Commerce in San Francisco and Oakland. There are a number of church organizations that you could get involved with as well. There are various levels of how deep you want to build those relationships. There are a number of causes, the food banks, homelessness. These are causes that companies can anchor their social responsibility around and help make a difference. So that's where I would recommend or advise companies to start.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And that kind of ties into some of what we've talked about previously. So when it comes to social responsibility, that is an amazing way of leading by example and showing that your company means what they say when they say they want to build a diverse talent pool, and they want the folks that come into work at their company are able to see people similar to them that, come from similar walks of life. So I think that's a very valuable, aspect to hiring. A question that I have for you, Leah, is what are some kind of key aspects in being able to retain and hire top talent? Obviously, we're all here in the Bay Area. Myself and Kevin have hired and worked with companies that have done hiring across the country and also internationally. But what would be your advice to a company in a few key areas that you think that they should focus on, not only for retention, but also to bring in the talent that basically everyone is vying for right now throughout the US?
I definitely think in terms of getting that talent, it's actually right there. It's just being insightful, thinking outside of the box, and looking within your base, within the organizations I've mentioned, the Black MBA, women's organizations, attending events and conferences virtually, and looking there, reaching out to your network, but also making it a part of the organization and making it a group collaborative effort, having a discussion within the leadership and everyone within the organization. Do you have any connections? Making sure that it grows many arms within your organization, so you're getting input from individuals where they feel that they're included. So it's bringing that diversity within internally and externally as well, and getting those different insights, to make sure that decision making is diverse and your mindsets are diverse. And through that, once you have that understanding of what you're trying to do, what it looks like, what your metrics are going to be, what are your goals at the end of the year, and your overall plan, then I feel you can make about great change, but really understanding the opportunity and what you want to do with it.
Kevin, do you have any thoughts in this particular area?
No, I think that she answered
Covered
that
it pretty well. Yeah. So I'll ask you this question, Kevin. So I know there's been a lot of questions in the forums that I've been involved in, kind of leading up to this conference and kind of figuring out what Black-owned business owners and hiring managers and companies, where we can add value to them with all of the expertise, that both of you bring to the table. And one of the questions that came up, and that this is kind of tied to the question of retention as well, what are some creative ways to onboard folks, especially remotely, when they've never met their hiring manager in person or anyone else in their company that they've been interviewing with, that they're going to be interacting with on a regular basis, daily, weekly, monthly, et cetera? What are some ways to onboard people and to kind of tie that into the company culture while dealing with this COVID environment?
We have to obviously be creative. I know that companies are doing things that I think are cool and taking advantage of the on-demand or delivery, so to speak, what the gig economy right now. So I know that companies are like on your first day are sending, that would normally take you out to lunch. So they're sending your favorite meal via DoorDash or some other service, to do that. Having online, I guess the onboarding process has to be online, but you could have breakups during that time, having after work, happy hour type get-togethers, et cetera, throughout that process to kind of contrast the formalities of things, but really being creative as far as having other employees that may not necessarily normally be a part of the hiring process to join in, thinking outside the box, doing, I don't know, virtual tours of the company headquarters and showing them around, so to speak, like this is what it could look like, one day when you get to come back, and those kinds of things can allow you to feel engaged or feel included in what's happening. And so any ways that they can show and demonstrate what the company's mission and values are in life. So some pictures or video of what they used to do out in the community, or those kinds of things, to make people feel like I'm not just seeing this on the website, but I'm actually getting, an employee's perspective of what it's like to work here. I think will help us get through this phase.
Yeah, I think it's also been a blessing and a curse, right? It's forced companies to really look at the way they engage with their employees on a different level, I think. So it's created some opportunity for us as well to do things better and to engage more with our employees in general. So Leah, one question I have for you, and just to kind of piggyback on my question for Kevin, I know that you and I have both been involved really heavily with creating kind of employee engagement and what that looks like. Obviously, that's changed during COVID. What are some ideas of programs? I know you're a very creative person, the programs that you have been a part of in the past, or even here in the last year, that really foster that company culture and belonging, and that help to bring people into the fold, especially when they're just starting a new job and they've never met anyone in person.
Yeah, I think it's important to have kind of like a mentor or someone that's bringing you in, so you have a buddy, especially since we're living in virtual times, not having that contact or not knowing anyone or having a work best friend. So kind of aligning them with someone who's interested in showing the ropes, helping you and being that mentor, and then looking at innovative ways to engage. So whether it's maybe having a book club and having people be co-facilitators, bringing in guest speakers, reaching out to the staff for different type of topics that could be engaging, to have a discussion, to meet individuals as well, and having some type of like fun activities where it's like a meetup, or having a cooking class, or some type of like performance where people are gathering together, where you see people and it's not a traditional meeting, where you can have discussions in the chat, or you learn about someone like, oh, I didn't know you were watching that movie, or I didn't know you were interested in hiking. I'm in a group. Would you like to join us on Saturday? So it's something that's social distancing, but you're actually able to see people. And as a new employee, that makes you feel good as you're a part of a team, where that you've actually seen someone, engage, learn more about them beyond their title and what they do from 9 to 5.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I know that you were involved in a program that I started at my company early on in COVID, where we brought in, our resources, like, folks that are really into food. We had employees that facilitated cooking classes, and we had employees that made their own kombucha and, set everyone up to learn how to make kombucha or make sourdough bread, or we did a Bollywood fitness dancing class. We, to your point, groups on their own, separate from the company, would get together and do a socially distanced hike, or we'd kind of track each other, kayaking or running or walking, and encourage each other's fitness, to encourage, folks that we worked with within the company to get out there and get some exercise, which becomes, challenging when you're working, from home with kids and dogs and everything else going on. So thank you so much for that. I know another thing that I've done quite a bit in my last few companies is using the donut meetup feature in Slack, so that you can meet people that you're not necessarily interacting with on a regular basis over Zoom. So that's kind of nice as well to understand, who kind of works in different areas that you don't necessarily interact with on a regular basis. So one question I have for both of you, actually, and I'll let I'll give this one to Kevin first. What are some ways for companies to encourage work-life balance? Because I know that is a conversation that has come up repetitively over the last year with all these shifts in work from home, folks trying to focus on their families and their health and fitness, and taking time for themselves, aside from work. What are some ideas that you have for people that are struggling with that, or even companies that are struggling with figuring out how to encourage that with their employees?
It's definitely a big issue right now. A lot of people have complained about the accessibility aspects of working right now. They're getting messages after a certain time in the evening, which they wouldn't normally have gotten. They're getting contacted on the weekends, and there's this expectation of being able to be available 24/7, and not of being able to unplug from work. So it's a very difficult time to be in. What I do, and what, I'm the founder of an organization called Family Wellness Group, which is, as Leah's point, they hike every weekend prior to COVID. and then have once a quarter different types of outdoor excursions, whether it's ski trips or camping trips or destination trips someplace to recharge. So I'm a big proponent of work-life balance. Even through my programs, I have instructors teach mindfulness and yoga to our students. And we have an outdoor camp where I take 100 students camping in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and I have tech companies lead workshops on what they do for a living. So work-life balance is able to, tell people that we actually do this on purpose. We want our devices to die, up in a mountain and can't catch any signal. And we really want to be away from everyone. And this is a voluntary thing, but that having that ability to recharge and practice these things are important. Now you can do that on your phone. I know I have Calm and Headspace on my phone, and other people can find there's tons of devices. I just saw a Black woman in the Forbes or something like that recently who just has an app for culturally relevant app for mothers, expecting mothers, that she just raised millions of dollars for or something like that. So like there's an app for anything that you're going through that can help you recharge and unplug. So those are the things that I would, number one, recommend that you take advantage of, because life and work is stressful and you're not good to anyone if you're not able to function. But then also, last thing, get your exercise in. 3 or 4 days a week, I exercise, and I try to my best to keep my calendar such that I don't have any meetings before 10 a.m. and no meetings scheduled after 5 p.m. And so before 10, I'm working out. I have a couple of YouTube uh, people that I watch that do 15 to 30 to 45-minute increment workouts, full body with no weights. So there's really no excuse. Google it and factor that in your day so that you make sure that you're productive and taking care of yourself.
Totally agree with you. And thank you so much. That's all great advice. I think for companies to allow employees to create boundaries, while still, being able to produce the work that they're there to produce is really important. And I think that that another thing, lead by example, as far as the leadership team really has to respect that, with their employees that they're overseeing and mentoring as well. Do you have any advice in this area, Leah, and ways to create some work-life balance? I know you have a very active, wonderful junior chef over there in your home, and you have a lot of kind of extracurricular things that you do, and you're super involved in the community. What is some advice from, a working mom with lots of things going on, for other folks that might be watching this that are looking for ways to, create some healthy work-life balance?
I would say, including in your signature, that you are a working parent, and I do not respond to emails after this time and on weekends. If it's like an urgent emergency, please give me a text. But verbally and having that, so when people say, "Oh yes, she's busy," or "She's a parent," or "It's Friday or Saturday," and then eliminating that urge to respond. Just because you get an email on Saturday doesn't mean you need to respond to it. This is your time and you can't get that time back. And also, we have vacation, using it. Making sure once a month you're taking a you day, for you to do things that you want to do and having that time for yourself. So every day there's a minimum amount of time where I make myself ensure that I have at least 30 minutes to do what I want to do. It may be sitting outside in silence drinking coffee, but that's my time and my silence because I miss that. For me, it's cooking. I have to make a minimum of 3 meals a day for 3 people. And to have that balance, I started doing a cooking blog to make it fun, that I'm doing something that's exciting and it's not a mundane task, and spicing it up. I ride my Peloton. I get in that zone. It's just me and the machine and a workout. Um, and so I think it's holding yourself accountable. It's so easy to not protect your time and your energy, and it affects your health because you're giving so much that you're not allowing your body to recharge and to have that moment where you can relax, because then it starts to impact you because you're just going on fumes versus being the best version of yourself. So allowing yourself that time to recharge, to be by yourself, have some silence, work out, cook, read, read, or just be, meditate. Think about what you want to do and outline your plan of how to get there, do a vision board, but being vocal about what you need for you. And it's not being selfish, but you need to take care of you, and you are a person and you're the only one that controls your outcome. So holding yourself accountable is key.
Thank you so much. And to your point, recharging is extremely important, not only for companies to encourage that, but also to prioritize yourself so that you're able to be effective in your job, and you feel like you do have enough boundaries created to do the things that you love, even if you do love your work. So I know I'm a slightly recovering workaholic as well. I don't know how much I'm recovering, but that's all great advice from both of you that I'll definitely keep in mind myself as well. So in closing, one thing I'd like to ask both of you is, a lot of the folks that will be engaged in this particular tech conference are Black-owned businesses and individuals, that come from diverse communities that are looking to get into specifically the tech industry, which is obviously booming and extremely competitive right now and has been for years. What would be one or two of your most important takeaways for these Black-owned businesses or businesses that are wanting to hire, more diversely? What would be your most important kind of advice to them in actionable items that they can take away from this to really start engaging the Black community more from a hiring perspective, and also just internally in their company, and folks that come from diverse backgrounds and being able to foster that and, kind of embody the diversity and inclusion efforts that they say that they're engaged in? Kevin, if you don't mind, I'd love for you to take that.
Well, first thing I would say is if you're African-American owned business is to get certified. I can't tell you how many opportunities the city and county and other organizations have that are set aside to do business with Black businesses. Oftentimes we don't have the certifications or haven't gone through the red tape in order to get that aspect of our business solidified. So getting certified and being a registered vendor, getting your DUNS street number and all the other requirements that it takes for you to engage with government entities is going to help you out. And it's a long process. You might see a grant or something, you can't apply for it tomorrow. There are a lot of different steps that you need to take, and you need to get on the front end of working on that. So by the time you're ready to apply for it, you don't miss the deadline. Then I would say it's really about building relationships and your brand in the tech industry. A lot of times it takes, these companies will find you or want to do business with you if you are a leader in this, or you have a product or service that they want that's going to help them look good and that's going to push their agenda, their mission, their values further. So be a company that has a service that is impeccable, that your name recognition and your network in the space speaks for itself, and then join your chambers, join your networking groups. I run the Bay Area Black Professionals Group on LinkedIn. There are a number of other organizations that are out there that help professionals with inroads into companies. So start doing that, going to conferences like this, networking. You can't get my business card like the good old days, but follow me on LinkedIn or connect with me, and then build from there.
Thank you so much for offering to be a resource. I know that you're involved in a lot of different things that can be really valuable to the folks that are going to be watching this and engaging in this conference. So thank you so much for that. Another thing I'll add as well is there are some veterans assistance programs and vocational rehab programs that are really valuable that I've been involved with that have been a great resource to me as well, and engaging with, folks in the Black community and more diverse backgrounds that come from that area. And I've been able to hire some really amazing individuals through some of those programs. And in some cases too, there are benefits to the companies from, state and local government and even the federal side for hiring people out of those programs that are looking to kind of start a new career in a different area outside of the military. And another piece is, I think that's important to consider is for companies to offer continuous education, even if it's learning a new programming language or getting their PMP certification, or learning more about product management or whatever it may be, a new system or a software. So I know one piece that's really helped to attract new employees and wherever they're at in their career, is to really create a substantive program where folks are able to engage in technology conferences or domain specific conferences, or learn more about the space that they're in, like in health tech or the financial space, et cetera. And that continuous learning aspect, I think, is very important. And it's a great way to attract top talent, because there's a lot of companies that don't do that. And also for companies to just show that they want to help in the overall career development of the folks that they are hiring or that they're potentially hiring, and actually leading by example in that area. Leah, in closing, do you have any kind of advice for businesses, or Black-owned businesses that are wanting to engage more in hiring this top talent right now in our current market?
Yes, I would definitely say that one, they should definitely, if they don't have it, have a diversity and inclusion role within their organization, and then incorporate some affinity groups. Um, if they don't have that, I would recommend that they bring in someone from the diversity and inclusion sector to help them outline their plan, to bring in that perspective and guide them down the road that they're looking to create their diversity inclusion. And as Kevin said, being a part of groups, attending conferences, really having boots on the ground in the community to understand where this talent resides, and how to engage with them, and that mentorship and looking at the younger generation so that you have a pipeline.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, you guys. I really appreciate you coming on to give us your wealth of knowledge over the years that you've spent time in the various spaces that you work in. We'll also be giving access to all three of us and our backgrounds to potentially be able to support, folks that want to learn more about different organizations they want to be involved in, that myself and Leah and Kevin either lead or are a part of. So we will be offering that resource to you as well. And thank you so much for joining us for the Zanger NNPA 2021 Tech Conference.
Thank you.
Thank you.